Jason, the first thing I want to ask is, I know you were born in Illinois. When did you first start singing and playing guitar?
I think I was in high school the fall of my senior year, and I'd written a few songs and took the songs to my English class and said, "Can I sing this to the class?" And the English teacher, incredibly, said yes. So that was the first time I played for people, was to that English class. So I always wondered if that lady would have said no, maybe I would have never been a musician.
Oh no. Who were your early musical influences?
Bob Dylan, biggest.
Oh yeah.
I always like to say that Bob Dylan, Bob Dylan, Bob Dylan are my three biggest influences. But I loved a lot of the country rock from the '70s, as well as the traditional country music, the singer-songwriter stuff from the '70s and '80s, and I got a little bit into the first wave punk rockers as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the jump way ahead. I mean, way ahead to 1981. And when you moved to Nashville, tell me a little bit about when you moved to Nashville and how that was for you. Was that a culture shock or anything?
Well, Nashville in 1981 is very different than Nashville 2021. It
Yeah.
was a very quiet, very genteel, very laid back little sort of college town in the South. It wasn't this conglomerate mega entertainment capital that it is now. Of course, they had country music going on, but I was quite surprised that there weren't more, frankly, that there weren't more people doing what I was planning to do, what I'd hoped to do. It was kind of an interesting, it was like there was a wide open horizon. There wasn't anybody doing what I was doing or in my way. I could just go for it. It was a time of great possibility.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. How did you first put the Scorchers? I think you called it the Nashville Scorchers at first, right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
The
How'd you put
first,
them together?
well, I hit the ground running. I got to Nashville July 4th of 1981. I'd never been to town, actually. And I met in a bar a guy named Jack Emerson, who was just a college student. He eventually became a big Americana music executive, but at the time he was just a college kid at Vanderbilt. I told him what I was trying to do, what I wanted to do. This was like the first or second night I was there in Nashville. And he said, "Man, I love this idea." And on the spot, he said, "I'll help you do it. I play a little bit of bass. I know a guitar player, I know a drummer. We'll put a band together." So then me and Jack talked more, and we decided to name it Jason and the Nashville Scorchers. From there, believe it or not, 3 weeks later, Jack, he also was on the concert committee at Vanderbilt. He got to see opening for Carl Perkins. Our first show, my first show in Nashville was opening for Carl Perkins at Vanderbilt Auditorium.
Wow.
And at that show was Jeff Johnson. It was kind of a rock and roll, one of the few pioneering rock and roll guys in Nashville. He saw it and he hunted me down and said, "Man, I want to help you with this. I want to help you make this vision come to reality." And then he brought in Warner brought in Perry, and then by November of that year, just a few months later, we were selling out rooms in Middle Tennessee. It happened so fast. It was really quite incredible.
Yeah, for sure. So the Scorchers, how many years did you guys play together?
Well,
The first
that's
run?
always hard to define because we never, since like '89, we've kind of been together, kind of not.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say the '80s was our decade where we really produced and really went for it. But this band still does a show or two occasionally, although we have only done one record in something like 24 years. So I don't see much of an ongoing concern with the band right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember a few years ago getting an album from you, a Farmer Jason children's album, and I really liked it and wrote a review and everything. Are you still doing the Farmer Jason thing, the shows and music?
Oh yes, I imagine I'll always do it for the rest of my life. It
Hmm.
was, for a while it was the thing I was doing. My main focus of my music was Farmer Jason from 2002 to 2000, maybe 15 or 16. And I'll always do it. I love doing it.
Yeah, well, I can understand that. It's something really special about playing for kids anyway.
It is a spectacular experience.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about your time as artist in residence at the Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park. When was that, and how was that for you?
That was in June of 2017. They called me out of the blue. I didn't apply for it. And they said, we have this program. We want to start getting more musicians into this artist in residence program. Before, it always usually been photographers and painters. So I was like, yeah, sure. What's the catch? Before they finished the sentence, I said yes. And I went out there for a month. They had me in a cabin at about 9,000 feet. And by cabin, I don't mean like a jacuzzi on the deck kind of cabin. This was a real cabin. This was a rundown, old. Every now and then they had power, but most of the time there wasn't power. Plumbing was really kind of spotty. No internet, of course, or phone. And I spent a month in the mountains of the Sierra Nevada mountains. It was a fantastic experience, writing songs and doing shows.
Wow, it sounds like fun. Well, the new album, Rhinestoned. Well, first of all, I love the title, but Rhinestoned, sixth solo album, uh, such a wide variety of songs. First thing I want to ask is, how did you decide what cover songs you wanted to record?
I think I've always had a pretty good instinct about cover songs. I've always done that on almost every record we ever did. I wanted this time, though, to kind of show some of the roots of country music, of the phases of country music that I dig and that I believe in. And of course, starting with the Carter family, you can't go wrong with that. And then with Hank Sr., doing an old Christian hymn, the old 18th century Christ the Lord is risen today, that hymn. And then I wanted to hit one of the country rock phases that I loved, and that was a song by the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, Time War.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the Ozarks, and I was really tickled when I saw that you had when I saw that on the I have to admit, when I saw that title on the album, at first I thought, wait a minute, he's covering a song from Rocky Horror.
Yeah, that's a lot of people think that.
No,
That would
no.
have been good.
Yeah, what that'd be you could do it. You could do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but man, that Ozark song's great. Um, well, let me see. I wanted to also ask you about the your songwriting. I really like your songwriting, and the one I wrote with Crazy Horse. What's the inspiration behind that song?
I've been into Crazy Horse for quite a long time, and he's one of the most fascinating Native American leaders from the 19th century. Most of those people we know a lot about. We know a lot about Chief Joseph. We know a lot about Geronimo, Cochise, Sitting Bull, Red Cloud, but we don't know a lot about Crazy Horse. In fact, there aren't even any pictures of him, photos of him. We don't even know what he looked like. A lot of legend surrounds him. One of the legends is that he had this cousin or like a best friend who fought beside him through all those battles. And he didn't just fight white people. He was fighting the Crow, the Blackfeet. He was always in some sort of military activity. But there was rumors he also was kind of a holy man, like a shaman. So this cousin, this friend, it just seemed like such a compelling thing to write a story about, because not only are you talking about Crazy Horse and Lakota heritage, but also about what it's like to be the support person behind somebody famous. So I took those angles and I made that song I wrote with Crazy Horse. Most of it was written actually in a dream. I heard it in a dream. I could hear the song while I was dreaming, and I woke up and immediately grabbed my phone and started singing it. I sang the song right into my phone recorder, and then later I sorted it all out, all the different lyrics. But most of it was written in one sitting.
Well, the one thing about that song that I find is that it gets stuck in your head, the melody, and I had it. I have it going around in my head for like one day and a whole night. I wake up like at 3 a.m. and I hear that song. So I don't know. There's something special about it. It really is. It's just and yeah, I love anything to do with Native Americans too. So that's really cool. Um, Another one that I wanted to ask about is this song is seems like a perfect song for our current time, and that's the Freedom Riders were rides weren't free, and I love it. I was wondering if it was inspired at all by all these events of last year.
It actually wasn't. I wrote that song before the
Hmm.
George Floyd murder and before, the unrest that happened all summer and fall and continues. I'd always been fascinated by the Freedom Ride story, but only recently, just a few years ago, I found out that the Nashville civil rights folks played a big role in the Freedom Rides movement, the second wave especially. When the first wave fell apart after Aniston, after the bombing, it was essentially abandoned, and no one was going to continue these rides, which were, incredibly provocative. But a bunch of college kids in Nashville at Meharry and Fisk, just a bunch of poor college kids, most of them the first generation to go to college, all sat down in their little room, in their little dorm rooms. They got together in a circle, and just a couple dozen of them, and they emptied out their pockets, and they emptied out their wallets, and they emptied out their bank accounts, and put it all in a pile in the middle of the room, and counted it up and said, okay, we can afford 18 tickets to get 18 of us down to Birmingham, and then onto buses across the Mid-South to continue the Freedom Rides. They had no support. The Kennedy administration was strongly against it. The NAACP was against it. No one gave them any support in doing this. It was just a bunch of college kids with no backup. They knew whoever got on those buses was going to get beat up and jailed. They knew that. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. But they still got on. In fact, they had more volunteers to get on those buses than they had ticket money. So they drew lots to decide who would get to go on those buses to get beat up. That's the kind of people those folks were, right from Nashville, Tennessee. It's an amazing story. So that was the
It really is.
primary inspiration for the Freedom Rides Weren't Free. There's a real Nashville connection there in that song as well.
Well, yeah, man, for sure. Well, speaking of Nashville, I love the song Nashville Without Rhinestones. And I've got a sort of a pet peeve I've had for a few years, and that's that it seems like classic country music has been pushed out in lieu of these young, I don't know, basically, I call them hat acts that are just young guys in cowboy hats and tight blue jeans. And I don't, I miss the days of like George Jones on the radio and stuff like that. I just wonder how you felt about the state of country music.
Well, I think there's been a schism in the format between the traditional country singers and the sort of market country singers. And I can see when I go downtown to Broadway, I can see who the market country singers are marketing to. It's those people riding the beer trolleys and the pedal taverns and singing, Kid Rock songs. And then on the other side, there's the people like Chris Stapleton and Charlie Crockett, et cetera, that are doing a whole different kind of thing with country music, more respectful of the tradition of it. So there is a schism in the whole country music world now, and you're on one side or the other. I'm not on the market country people, side, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Um, the single from the album "Keep Your Promise," I love that one too. Tell me a little bit about that song.
That has a long Nashville connection. I wrote that with Todd Cerny a long time ago, in the late '80s, as a matter of fact. And Todd was, he wrote, he had Grammy-nominated country songs. He wrote a bunch of big hits and stuff. And then Todd passed away. I tried recording the song "The Scorchers," and never sort of worked. So on this record, because there's such Nashville connections and country music connections, I felt that it would fit, and it did. It fit perfectly. George Bradford did an excellent job producing that track.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we touched on it a little bit a while ago, but one of the songs that really was a pleasant surprise to me as somebody who grew up in the church was when you did Christ the Lord is Risen Today. And it was just a really pleasant surprise. And, it's been widely reported that you're Christian, and that's great. And so am I. But I wanted to ask you what that song means to you.
I grew up Catholic, so I didn't have a lot of exposure to that song. The last several years, my family has been going to a Presbyterian church here in Dixon. My kids sing in the choir. And at Easter, a year ago this time, they sang that song, Addie and Camille with the choir. And I was just floored by it. I may have heard it in passing, but I'd never really listened to it. And I was floored. At that time, I was, putting together the record. So, I just thought it would be a cool song to do. And, I wanted to give it sort of a real aggressive rock and roll sort of attack. And then I also brought in my daughters to play on it. Camille plays piano, and Eddie Rose sings those beautiful harmonies. So beyond that, I'd like to say a little more about the song. The song is filled with such hope. There's such hope in that song. It's such an optimistic song. And I felt like I needed that on the record. There are some pretty heavy songs on this record, and I felt like I just needed to have a little more, have a more optimistic angle as well on the record. And that song, wow, it's just such a beautiful, well-written song, so full of hope and joy and exuberance. It's an amazing track, written, by Charles Wesley, who founded the Methodist Church.
Yeah, I fully agree with all that. One more question. We breezed right through. The last question is, what do you have on the books right now? What do you have? I mean, I know we're just hopefully coming out of the COVID thing, but what do you have planned for the immediate and distant future?
Well, I'm doing some cool shows, but not very many. I'm doing a show at my farm in Nashville, outside of Nashville, May 8th. It's a, totally social distance, all outside, to celebrate the release of the record. That's May 8th. That's called Jason's Rhinestoned Jamboree, Jason's homegrown Rhinestoned Jamboree. The second show we're doing is June 5th at Eddie's Attic in Atlanta. At Decatur, Georgia, near Atlanta. And that's going to be the second sort of record release show for the record. So that's what I'm doing now. I hope to tour more, but I'm also connecting with people on the internet, doing things like this, and finding different ways to connect with my audience, because live touring is definitely different now. Even when we come back, I think it's going to be changed. Yeah. There will be changes.
Yeah, I think everything's changed forever, but
Everything
hopefully it'll be a little more, a little bit more normalcy. And I was happy to hear you say that you're going to be at Eddie's Attic. I'm going to have to try and get to that. I used to play there myself, and I just love that room. It's just so intimate,
It's funny because all my life I've wanted to play Eddie's Attic, and I've never been able to make it work. I don't know why.
Wow.
And finally, my agent got hooked up with them, and I'm playing Eddie's Attic. To me, it's like I'm playing Madison Square Garden.
It is the coolest place. All right, Jason, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for your time, and continued success to you, buddy. So much. I really appreciate it so much. You can tell it's early in the morning. I can't even talk. Thank you for everything. Okay.
Well, it's my pleasure, Michael. You're a real gift to musicians, and you're a true music person, and I always respect that.
Thank you, Jason. Take care, buddy, and I'll talk to you down the road.
All right, see you down the road, my friend.
All right, thank you so much.
Making it back to Macon, give me some grits, gravy and bacon, just a little something to tide me over. Mama Louise and the H&H Open. She got fried chicken and pinto beans, hot cornbread, sweet iced tea, everything that a body needs. That's why I'm making it back to Macon. Give me some grits, gravy and bacon, little something to hold me over till Mama Louise and the H&H open.